Wait a minute, this isn't right. Hang on a second. Okay, that's better. Hey, how's it going? I'm IlaGolden and welcome to my vlog. So, today we are going to be talking about how I have changed as a writer over the years, which obviously I have. No writer can honestly say that how they wrote when they were a teenager or a young adult or whatever is the same as, how they write now. There's always an evolution. There's always, you learn your trade as you go. It's very much a process. You can't, go from zero to award-winning novel just like that. There's a lot involved, and there's a lot of developing developmentation. That's a word, right? There's a lot of developing that writers go through, and it's important to sort of take time to understand your own process of evolution as a writer. And I think a lot of my sort of main changes as a writer, and a lot of the main ways I've evolved as a writer, very much came, and I'm going to reference it again, from writing the tales, from putting in the dedication and the work and the discipline that I gained from writing the tales, and getting myself involved in the Tale Saga and the YS series that I did around the same time, and the Realms and Reality series, which I also wrote around that sort of period, where it was all about focusing on the discipline of writing and making sure that I wrote regularly and stuff like that. That really kind of yeah, it made me the writer that I am. But even like after that, and all the stuff that I've sort of written since then, it's still been a process. It's still been like a lot of developing. And I think my current style, the way that I write now, the way that I'm sort of happy with now, has only really developed over the last 5-6 years. And I'm I'm in my third decade now. I won't go into more than that. So the process which has gotten me to this point, it's not just been like, it's not been an easy process. Very much, I've always done the whole fantasy thing, but I think I constricted myself a lot more when I was younger. The idea that your entire story had to be sort of told in a single book, and you had to sort of like rush. I rushed. I rushed because I didn't know any better. It's probably the best way of putting it. So a lot of the stuff that I wrote, in my teens, they were a lot shorter, they were a lot more condensed. Things moved very, very quickly. There was no chance of getting to know the characters. There was no chance of really developing the plot. And I think it's something that's probably, I wouldn't say it's a common mistake that a lot of young writers make, but I'd say it's very typical of young writers and people who are sort of just getting into the craft and just starting to learn who they are and how they are as writers, do very much make that sort of, I wouldn't necessarily say it's even an error, but that sort of decision of everything has to be there and done and finished, and you have to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible. And I think as I've gotten older, I've sort of slowed down a lot more. I've learnt to take in the scenery of the moments that I'm creating. I've learnt to love and develop the characters that I'm writing so much more, and you can kind of even see that. And yeah, again, I'm talking about the tales, but like the difference between how the original Tales of Yu-Gi-Oh is written, and how the story kind of evolves in that one, compared to how it evolves in sort of like the later stories. You can sort of like see, what was originally like 3 or 4 different plots which kind of occur. There is sort of definitely there's this story, and they overlap a little bit, but there's definitely like 3 sort of major key stories that sort of take place in that original one. And then the second book is what's very, very condensed and very, very small, and then you get the third book where I really start focusing on telling this one complete story within the book, and developing characters and slowing everything down. And then later when, you know, in the second half of the series, in the next generation part of the series, where you get, you know, the story then sort of starts taking place over multiple books, which, you know, it is something I do try to avoid doing, but like the ends of my series is quite often end up sort of seeming to sort of divulge into that a little bit, whether I mean it to or not. But you know, as in terms of, you know, how I write and the care in which I write, it's a process of sort of slowing myself down and allowing the time I need for the story to tell itself. And yeah, it's something I've had to grow into, and I think it's maybe a reflection on my personality and who I am as a person, that sometimes you kind of need to grow into something before you kind of understand that something. And I've very much grown into who I am as a writer, and the style which I write, and things that I did when I sort of used to write and things that I do now. And like, anybody who's read my writing will probably notice that the word, oh, I don't use, like, I don't have someone speaking and then go, they said. I don't use that. I stopped using it during the tail saga phase. I sort of slowly started phasing that out, and then I started phasing out things like they cried and those sorts of things, and in exchange sort of put the expression of how the people say those things in its place. And I prefer that. I prefer that sort of fluidity, that sort of the way it flows a lot better, and it's not, you know, you're not jankily interrupting, you know, the flow of what you're trying to create by putting in these words to tell the reader what they already know, that somebody is speaking. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with people who do that, and if you can do that and you can make it and it feels comfortable for you and you can make it work for you, that's great. But I don't like doing it, and I don't find it particularly comfortable to do, so I prefer not doing it, as it were. And the less I've sort of done it and the less I've sort of relied on it, the more when I sort of go back and edit things that I wrote back then, I look for ways of taking it out, and I usually take it out when I can. I very rarely come across a situation where I've not been able to put something in instead of they said or they asked, or, you know, those kind of things, because, you know, I want the flow to be there, and that flow is very important to how I write now. That was one of the things that was most interesting during my first edit of Hyena Boy, because Hyena Boy was originally written when I was a teenager in my late teens, and then was edited sort of in my early 20s. So it got brought up to how I was writing in my early 20s, and now has been redone again for, you know, hopefully still a March release. I'm at the stage now where I need to sort of do like a second read through of it to make sure that I'm happy with everything and that I've changed the things that I need to change, and I think there are a couple more tweaks that I want to sort of do, and then it's just like formatting stuff that I'm at with it now. But you know, the editing through of it this time, and I even noticed that I'd already started taking a lot of that out anyway, sort of in my early 20s, when I was sort of not relying on it quite as much. So sort of going back and going through it again now, and I sort of managed to get all of it out, and it's now like how I write now rather than how I write then, but there's still that voice of how I wrote then sort of there in it as well, and I like that. I like that because the characters, or the character that, you know, the point of view that's been written from is of a teenager. So the fact that it's got that sort of feel to it still, that sort of naivety in it, in the way it's written still, kind of works for the story that's being told. So yes, it is the standard that I write at now, but it's still got that naivety that I used to have then, and I think that's one of the reasons why I love that project so much, and why I've allowed that project to kind of grow with me, because it's a perfect demonstration of how I've evolved as a writer, and it's a very fitting it's a very fitting way of looking at my evolution as a writer, and it's just, yeah, I am very passionate about Jay for that reason, and many other reasons. I, you know, as I'm sure I've expressed in various things, and the same with the tales. You know, when I went back and I did the re-update of the tales, you know, changing it from how I used to write to how I write now, just made me love it more. And it's, yeah, that I don't I'm not ashamed of how I used to write, because how I used to write informs how I write now. And you can see a lot of the things that I do now there, just in their sort of beginning, in their infancies. And, you know, as I said, I used to sort of rush through things a lot more than I do now. And it's one of the things I want to sort of do when I do my next sort of filing, editing stuff with Jay, is to sort of slow it down a little bit, and add a little bit more in here and there to savor the moments. And it's one of the things I did in the last drafting of it, and I think it needs a little bit more, just to pace it down a little bit, because it doesn't need to be as rushed as it is. You know, that's still the teenager writing that, but at the same time, it's supposed to be from the point of view of a teenager who is trying to rush through this story in some ways anyway. So it's about finding balance, and you know, it's yeah, yeah. 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 I'm just going to keep saying, yeah, I'm having a fibro moment. I apologize. But you know, it's important to evolve as writers. It's important that you allow yourself to develop and continue developing. And I'm sure how I'll be as a writer in another 10 years will be completely different to how I am as a writer now. Okay, yes, a lot of it will carry forward and a lot of it will still be the same, but there'll be differences. There has to be differences. You can't not evolve as a writer, because you evolve as a person, and your writing is a part of you. It's part of who you are. It's part of what makes you you. So if it doesn't evolve alongside you, you're kind of stuttering a part of yourself. So I very much look forward to seeing how I write in the future and looking back on how I write now. And, you know, as I think I've mentioned before, you know, Blood, Friendship and Marriage, the Time Forgets, the first book that, you know, I did actually manage to self-publish. I really do want to go through and bring that up to my current standard at some point, and that's going to be interesting and hard work, and I know that it will be, but it will be worth it, because and I enjoy doing that. I enjoy, you know, making something that was good for how I used to write, great for how I write now. And, you know, having that little bit of naivety there isn't a hindrance to the work or to the writing. It informs it in a different way. And I think you've got to sort of respect your own past as a writer very much. I'm not sure how much I can say without starting to plug myself. I hope you guys have found this one interesting. I think I found it more enjoyable. I know I sort of got a little bit distracted, but I think I've enjoyed doing this one, stuttering and all. All right. So next time, touch wood, with everything being well and all of the technical issues being sorted, should be my collab. So it should be my diversities, differences blog. Hopefully, obviously, if it has to get pushed back again, it has to get pushed back again. I'm really hoping it doesn't have to get pushed back again, because you know it's as frustrating for me as it is for her that it's being pushed back already. So fingers crossed, all being well, next one should be diversity. Look forward to it. Look forward to it. If I can get it to work, it should be fantastic. That's all I'm saying. If I can get it to work. Okay. So, hope you've enjoyed this one. I hope you guys are looking forward to the next one as much as I am. And until next time, see ya! If you've enjoyed this video, feel free to check out some of my others. And if you like what you see, please like and subscribe. See ya!